What's up, y'all? Welcome to Call to Action. Happy Saturday. Today's Saturday, right, Billy?
I believe so. I think it is Saturday.
So.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Saturday is right for fighting. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what any days are anymore.
It's quarantine days. That's all it is. They're all the same. Every day feels like Saturday when you don't got a job. What? Okay.
That's right. So thank you all for being so patient and hanging out with us inside of the chat. This is absolutely 100% a Blame PLD moment. But you have me, your girl, Danielle here, hanging out with you on this happy Saturday with one of my favorite co-hosts, Mr. Billy Belford.
The better co-host. I mean, you got the A player. Here, at least. You know, B plus Denuzio is running some errands or something, or losing children, or we don't know. Not really important. It is all his fault, as always. He's a terrible human being and a worse person in general. But yeah, we're live here on Saturday. We're gonna break down another Schmodown match. This is an amazing match. We had the Den, apparently their team. Ben Goddard, and Rachel Silvestrini or Phil Silvestrini, one at Slingblade and Switchblade and whatever Goddard's called. What's it? Bandit. There we go.
You know, I've learned how to wrangle a lot of these people from the show. I do not know how to wrangle Billy at all. So.
You know, no wrangling necessary.
Yes, we are here discussing the match between Final Exam, Lon Harris and Paul Oyama versus The Pride, Ben Goddard and Rachel Silvestrini. Swag versus The Den. And y'all, before we get started, without further ado, I do have someone to introduce because we are very excited to bring on this person. You all should know because I believe that it is in the. Anyways, y'all, welcome to the show, Mr. Lon Harris.
Hey, everybody. Yes. All right. I'm here.
La Legende, as they say.
Behind me.
Oh my gosh, the true star of our hearts.
Hi, buddy. He knew we went live.
Schmodown. Is that a Schmodown attention?
Loves the attention. You've already gone to his head for sure.
Yeah.
He is posing. He's posing. He's got his good side. He's like
a ridiculous ham. I should have never given him an opening. I should have. It was my fault. It's my fault.
Lon, thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us on this Saturday. We are very excited to have you here with us.
My pleasure, of course.
Billy, were you saying something? I'm sorry.
No. I'm just still talking about Taco because Taco is amazing.
I can't wrangle Billy, and Taco's here, so we will all be very distracted. But thank you all so much. Thank you, Lon, for coming in with us. Lon.
Yes, I'm here.
You've been a part of the Schmodown for a couple of years now. We've seen your character work. Your character is one of the favorite things, or just the Delinquent. The Delinquent is one of my favorite things that I've seen throughout the Schmodown. I know it's a lot of people's favorite things throughout the Schmodown.
Well, thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah, of course. But I would like to know, how well do you feel the Delinquent and Primetime, Paul Oyama, work together as a team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually like it's both, like on both levels. Like I think Paul and I as people make a really good team because we're like, all of my past sort of partners have always been like, you know, they're around my age. We have kind of similar knowledge base, like me and JTE, or me and my brother. Obviously, me and my brother, we grew up together. We watched all the same movies. So it's almost a perfect overlap. Whereas Paul, he's a lot younger than I am. We're different generations. So something like YA movies, like that's a struggle for me. I was in my like, no, I'm not going to watch that stuff phase. I didn't see, I didn't go watch like the Scorch Trials when they came out or whatever, but Paul did. He loves that stuff. So like, but then, if it's 70s or if it's, a classic director, like something like John Carpenter, as I think you saw in the match, like that's something that he can sort of lean on me a little bit for, because, I'm those are my movies when I was growing up. So, so, I mean, I think that's a good balance. I also think it's a good balance in terms of the characters, just because he's such a straight man, and you need that, like my bit only works if there's someone like a Winston or a Paul, or even during the matches like Mark or Christian, like the beat with me is only funny if you get the funny beat with the other person being like, oh, just move on, just like get rid of it, cut his mic. Like Jen on the interviews is like amazing at this, and it doesn't. She's unsung, I think, as a comedian a lot of the time, because you need that. Like that beat is just as important as the me being an idiot beat for the joke. And like, so you need that other person being like, cut his mic, like just get rid of him. And like Paul is a great like foil in that way, you know.
Well, it's interesting because Paul last year was the cocky rookie. That was kind of like his character. He wore the sunglasses all the time, and he had to play this character while he was playing trivia. Now he's the straight man for the delinquent, which I feel like almost helps him because he just has to be himself. He just has to be a normal person who's playing with this delinquent.
I get the I'm like a badass in sunglasses who's going to stare you down and intimidate you thing. Like I get why that's a thing, and it's like even in poker too, that's like a huge thing where everybody's like, ooh, like like I'm the hat down and my glasses so you can't see what I'm thinking. Like I get it, but at the same time, it's so many people are doing it that I think it's really hard to make that your bit. Like I think at this point, we've seen a bunch of people do that and to stand out doing that. Whereas I think Paul now, by being a little bit more of himself and bringing a little bit more of his real personality out, and the fact that he's like, he's like the A+ student of the Schmodown. I mean, he's just like that dedicated to it. So I think bringing that out has really helped and has helped the audience connect with him more. And I mean, he's playing really great. So.
You finally get paired with an A+ student, and then you quit your job as a professor and become a delinquent.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was just honestly like the professor it was fun to do, but I was running out of jokes. Like the bit has to be, and I liked making the references real as much as I could. Like I made up a few things, but I liked referring to real directors or real film movements or real philosophers or whatever. And I was literally running out. Like I was just like, I don't know enough about foreign movies to continue doing this for another season. I'm going to start repeating my references. So I had to come up with something. So the delinquent was just where it landed. And,
shameless plug. You can hear a little bit more about that story on the Chill to Action episode with Mr. Lon Harris.
I'm like repeating myself, and you turned it into a plug. That's very good. Well done.
Absolutely not. But you do expand on it just a little bit more going into that. So, but definitely go ahead and check that out. Speaking of Chill to Action.
There's another host on this show? My goodness. That may be too many. Honestly, I think you should pick two. And
get out of here, Paul.
All right, I'll see you guys later. I'll take care.
I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Oh, come on.
I figured I'd be on brand and be like I forgot the whole thing was even happening kind of thing. So we're gonna do it right?
Yes, I appreciate the commitment.
Commitment to the bit. That's what you gotta do. So I don't know what I missed, but I love this episode. I love this match. Continue, and I will catch up as I go along.
I was just repeating myself. It's fine.
Repeating myself. Okay. Well,
telling old stories I've already told on your show, even though it's only the second time I've done it. So you can tell how many great stories I must have.
No.
like that time. Oh boy.
I could spend 2 hours talking about your match with Cody Hall. So let's move on.
We were just discussing Paul and Lon as a team together and how we've seen Final Exam kind of grow. So and there, I don't know for sure because we didn't clear it up, team, really quickly about spoilers for yesterday's pay-per-view match. So, Paul, I'm going to let you be the.
We'll talk about spoilers. We'll talk about spoilers at the end of it, as long as we know. We'll give a warning if we decide to go into spoilers at this point.
Got it. Understood. Okay.
We are in sports, so we're not totally. We're trying to get away from the trying to get away from the idea where we can spoil it because we're treating it like a sport. But because some people are still kind of.
That's totally fine. We can hold that stuff for the end.
Yeah. So back to you all as a team. You all also worked with different people before this season coming in, and now you all are working with Winston. So I would really like to hear, how do you feel with Winston as a manager? And not to put anything against John, loved his character and all of that stuff with him. Oh,
sure.
Yeah, with him, your manager and all of that. But I love Swag is my team. Everyone here knows Swag is my team. So I love seeing Winston work with his team members. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, Winston is. I mean, first of all, I think the first thing you have to look at with Winston is like he's the one who put this team together, which I don't think like he was on a level I don't think any of us as individuals were really on. Like to spot Ace and be like, I'm going to bring this guy on, to know that Chandru was going to be able to do what he has done, to put Paul and I together. It wasn't my idea. Like all of that comes from, and you know, like Liz Shannon Miller, who I think is going to do great things and has already been a strong player. And like, you know, Adam Hlavik, like it's a really deep, strong team he put together. So I think that's even where it starts. He's got a great mind for this game in even a way like I don't. Like I've got a great mind for like who directed this thing, but like I don't have a great mind for the Schmodown itself. And Winston really does. He's got that sort of strategic mind. He's also, you know, he's a good motivator. Like I think more than anything else, I don't think it's necessarily like he's the most focused maybe on prep or like the challenges, although there is all that discussion of that. But I think he's just the guy that is going to give you the right encouragement and like help you focus on the right stuff and not let you burn out. Because there are some people, like not me, but there are people on the team who would like spend their whole lives on this trying to get that edge and be the best. And he's a good guy to be like, hey, look, take tonight off and just like watch something you want to, or have a drink and like relax. And like I think you need that voice of reason sometimes.
For sure.
Well, speaking of prep, how was prep for this particular match? Did you guys do anything special? You have anything in mind where you're like, we got to take care of this, we got to take care of that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like Paul would literally murder me if I gave away too much because it's an ongoing. Like, literally, I would start before the show's over. I get texts like, "What the hell are you doing?" So I can't do that. But there are. I will say, I've never really prepped for the Schmodown before. I've always like sort of delinquent style been like, it's all up here, baby. Like video store, come to Papa. But you know, like now I think because there's so all these teams we're going up against and all these players we're going up against, like there are some new faces, but for the most part, veterans, and you can go back and you can look at their old matches. And Paul is already an encyclopedia. Like you can tell him a player and he's like, well, they've played this and this and this, and they did really good with this, and they kind of missed two here. And like, he already has that kind of, and so does Chandru, honestly. They're both like human computers in some way. Right. So, you know, like that's really helpful. And so we have been a little bit more strategic. I mean, I think one that I can give away because everybody sort of saw it is like, we purposefully boned up on Adam Sandler. That was the match before the Pride with Deep 13.
Right.
Where we put that on the wheel. But like that, yeah, that was a strategy because we were like, look, I know some Sandler, but I could obviously rewatch Zohan if it came to that. And so, you know, like if that happens to come up, then you're like super prepared. And, you know, like without giving too much away, like, yeah, already that has paid off. So yeah, so there is some kinds of prep like that, but I can't really get more into like the specifics of what those sort of areas are.
That is a Schmodown strategy, is like, because people talk about prepping for the Schmodown, and typically people think it's like, well, I'm just going to watch as many movies as I possibly can. That's not a strategy. That's like trying to run them. I'm going to train for marathons by running marathons. That doesn't work.
Or like trying to get smarter by reading the encyclopedia. Like, well, you pick up some things, but it's not in an organized way.
Right.
But you can pick like wheel slices. That's a finite amount of knowledge, and I can bone up on that. I can prepare for that, and it takes some of the like. And in the same vein, it's preparing for the rest of the Schmodown, because you might get a 5-point Sandler question that now you're going to get because you boned up on Sandler, you know? So
yeah, I mean, it's also very good. A lot of the time, you only figure this out by taking practice quizzes or quizzing, you know, prepping with other people or from the show itself. A great example. My brother and I, when we were the Harris brothers, we spun scores and soundtracks on the wheel one time in a famous blowout. And like, if you had asked me the day before that, like, Lon, how well do you know film composers? I would have been like, oh, well, you know, pretty good. Like, not maybe not great, but like, you know, I can get by. I know a Howard Shore from a Jerry Goldsmith. But then you get that category and you're asked those questions and you're put on the spot and you're like, oh, I do not know anything about this at all. I've never. And you realize, like, I'm watching movies and I was paying attention as a kid to who the actors were and who the directors were. But I wasn't trained to like look at who composed the music and remember it. So even though I remember, like, you know, one of the questions we got when we got that category was Apollo 13. And it's like, man, I could tell you a lot of details. I've seen Apollo 13 several times, I just never paid attention to whose name that was in the credits, who wrote the music. I could hum it for you, but like that doesn't help that's never the question. It's never like hum the theme from this. I'd be like right away, but that doesn't come up.
I kind of like that idea. So
like it turns out I'm pretty good at the soundtracks part, because I would remember the band or the singer, but I don't know the scores. But sometimes you don't know that until you're like smacked in the face by it.
Right.
Like family and animated movies was another thing for me, where like I assumed I knew it pretty well, but there's a period from like my late teens to late 20s when I was just like a shitty young person who was like, I don't care about that stuff, and I just ignored it, and like, well, now I don't know about Rango, so I gotta go back and learn about Rango, and I didn't know about Rango until I got asked a question about it. I was like, I don't know anything about Rango, sorry guys.
Well, Billy definitely he says the same thing. You're still in that phase, aren't you, Billy?
I've been in that phase my whole life. Cartoons are trash.
Right. Yeah, I was there for a long time, and I was just like, and I like the professor, like there's shades of the delinquent and there's shades of the professor in me. And I definitely had that phase of like, is this French? And like I was a snot for a while about it. And so like during those snot years, like that's why I know a lot about stuff I'll never be asked about in the Schmodown that was funny to bring up when I was the professor. But that's also why I don't know about Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is another question I got. Who voices the mayor in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? That everybody was like, Bruce Campbell, you huge idiot, sack of crap, my childhood. I can't believe you don't know this. And I was like, literally, I'd never seen that movie. So I've since watched it. And it's
you're in good company, though, because like famously in the Schmodown, there are people who didn't like animation, or because Sam Levine.
Irwin is like me, where we kind of struggle with it sometimes. And yeah, exactly. It's like, but then once you learn that, it's actually a great insight, because now I know, like, I sort of try when I can to like, let me check out one of these animated movies that I just missed because I was being snotty, because now I'm over myself and it's fine. And they're like, Moana's not going to hurt me. I can watch it. And, like it helps sometimes.
Is there one that you really enjoyed that you like went back to watch because of the Schmodown, and you found out that you really enjoyed it?
Oh, sure. I mean, there have been a bunch of movies that I only watch because they keep seeming to come up in the Schmodown that then I've enjoyed. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is a great example. Like, I didn't even know that was Lord and Miller. Like, I'd never even made that backwards connection. I thought like they were the Clone High guys to me. So it was great. It was a lot of fun. Also, Remember the Titans was one that kept coming up that I mean, maybe I had seen. I like knew what it was, but going back, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, I get why this keeps coming up in the Schmodown. It's a really good movie. So sure, there's definitely examples of just stuff that you don't watch for yourself. I also can say, because this is not part of like team prep, but after it caught on the wheel, I was like, I should go back and watch a bunch of these Nora Ephron movies I haven't seen for a while, just because now I might be asked about it. And like they're all great. Like, it's a total delight to go back and watch all those old movies. And so prep can be fun if you don't do it on Adam Sandler.
Keep that in mind. I'll keep that in mind.
Oh my God, Little Nicky is how what? People always say Jack and Jill is the word. Little Nicky is so much worse than Jack and Jill.
At least Jack and Jill has Dunkachino, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, there's at least 3 or 4 parts of Jack. Like, Jack and Jill's bad, but there's at least 3 or 4 parts where you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny. Whereas Little Nicky is just a disaster from moment one. Like, it's barely a movie.
Little Nicky has such a good cast too, and it's like,
tons of funny people in it, just not being funny at all.
Well, how did they get them to do this movie? Did they were they holding them at gunpoint? Did they have something on them?
It's easy. Everybody comes for just like a few days, like nobody has a huge part. Like, Rodney Dangerfield has to do an afternoon,
right?
And then they've got everything they need. It's like the same with like Bruce Willis and all those like VOD movies where it's just like it's actually like Josh Duhamel is the star of the movie, but Bruce Willis is like on the phone from an office twice, like, give me my money. Or Kelsey Grammer and Money Plane. Great example.
There you go.
Just like sit there for 3 days, smoke this huge, ridiculous cigar, and like scream about your money, and then hang up, and then you're done.
Here's your ring.
Here's a check. Here's a check.
Right?
I love, not to distract the show anymore, but Uwe Boll used to make those terrible movies, and they would always have like one or two huge stars. Like it would be like a bunch of nobodies and like Jason Statham. Right? And he used to actually like, they would get the whole movie ready. Like, and then like 2 or 3 weeks before shooting, he would just look at what actors have like an unexpected little gap in their schedule. And then they would just call him up and be like, hey, Jason Statham, you don't need to be anywhere for 3 weeks for Transporter 2 to start. Come make this movie and we'll give you a bunch of money. And so like, that's how all these big stars randomly wind up in these like horrible, dumb movies.
Can't blame them. Yeah. Check the check, you know. But anyway, let's have the idea about the digital format now at this point. You played it initially. Now, how has that changed for you guys now you have to do it digitally?
Honestly, it's really like it's not that different from a Q&A, like from the actual gameplay position. Like obviously, like, you know, it's a different vibe when there's a crowd either cheering for you or booing for you. Like that adds a different dimension to the game. So that, you know, it's like weird to be like in your PJs in your apartment doing it. But, you know, having said that, it's really not that different in terms of the gameplay. It is interesting that now, like, the dumb crap I say to Paul, but like everybody can hear us. And so like now everybody knows like who knew the answer and like how often it's that Paul knows the answer. And I'm just like, so that's great. Because before people could be like, well, maybe Lon's just super smart. And now they're like, no, Paul knows all the answers. And Lon is like, sure. Yeah. Probably what you said, probably. I mean, I guess. Juice? That sounds good. Sure, I don't know. Sure. I was alive when that movie came out. You weren't, but maybe I should defer to you. That's fine. Yeah.
Well, it is
answer questions about my own life. That's great. I saw it in theaters, but I don't remember. Who's to say?
It's interesting with Paul, though, because Paul always has an answer right away for a question, right or wrong, and it always sounds plausible at the very least.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, no, he's a great.
Like, that must be right.
Yeah, I don't really like to say unless I know. Like you can tell when you can always tell when I know. Like you can because immediately I'm like jumping in there. Like I'm excited to let you know that I know. Like there have been times where other people get asked the question, it's not even my question, and as soon as it's clear that they don't know, I'm like, I know. I just like I don't even have to answer, but I just want you to know that like there was the water world, like the Paul Preston, I think, got a 5-pointer that was like, what is he trying to trade for Gene Triplehorn in Waterworld? It's paper, and I knew it, and he didn't know it, and it was like killing me. It was like, it's paper. Even though like if he knew it, he would win. It's really stupid. Like I should be glad that he doesn't know. But instead, I'm really frustrated that I know and he doesn't know. But yeah, a lot of the time it's like I've got a pretty good guess, but then Paul is like, I know, and I'm like, well, yeah, that was probably going to be my guess anyway.
That's right. You got to make it sound good. Yeah, that's definitely right. That's what I was thinking too.
For sure, of course.
All right. One of the things they did now, also the previews they did. Let's see if we can put this up here after the stream. There, we'll put that.
These Nerd Chronic videos.
Oh yeah. Look at this.
Yes.
Look at the parody in backgrounds. I wonder where he shot this.
That's a great green screen they got there, right?
Yeah, look at that.
So who writes these? Who like comes up with these ideas? Is this all you? Is this like some kind of back and forth between you, Winston, or how's this work?
No, I mean a lot of it is you know, like there are a few people like Skybound and Christian at the Schmodown, and sometimes they will send me very specific. So like I created the delinquent character and I did a couple of the first sort of matches and promos myself. But so now that it's like everybody kind of gets who the delinquent is, yeah, sometimes they'll send me very specific stuff. Like for this one, they said, you know, we're gonna have Eric, aka Nerd Chronic, Eric's gonna cut together this promo and it's gonna be Paul's half is gonna be like, we're fired up. We're ready to go. Let's kill this match. And then your half is going to be literally you asleep. And that was like my take on it. And my original plan was to just like I was going to wait for Taco to like settle and then just send them that. But then when I watched it back and Taco was like circling and like really vamping and taking his real time, it was so weird and funny. And it went on so long. I was like, I have to send them this whole thing. Maybe they're not going to use it all. And then they legitimately did use it all. So that was nice.
It's one of those promos where it starts out funny and then it's like, this is getting weird. Like, is he dead? and then it just became funny again. Like,
right, it's totally like a Family Guy thing. Like, it's not necessarily that it's funny; it's that we let it go on so long that it then becomes funny. Yeah.
Again, it's like it's humorous.
Right. It goes
a
up
little
and down,
low, and then it gets more. But if you commit to it, it's the monthly commitment, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So,
and Taco is the star. Taco is the star.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it wouldn't work without. He's what makes the whole thing funny.
For me personally, one of the funniest things was that I watched both Ben Goddard's and Rachel Silvestrini's promos like right before yours. Like I just watched them in succession, and there's them talking and doing the typical schmodown thing of like trying to hype up the match or like trying to talk. They're mostly talking about Frankie numbers in their promos, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was always a big thing with us versus the Pride is that, like they don't really have like a grudge against like Ben and I've known Ben for a while. Like we totally get along. Like there's no bad blood between us. They are, though, involved in this whole drama. And I feel like, a lot of their focus was there. And that was like the storyline that they were telling, which is fine. I mean, I didn't do this on purpose, but a thing about the Delinquent that I think makes it work really well in the league, especially like with all of these other players who are doing their own bits, is like everything just bounces off of the Delinquent. Like, again, it wasn't on purpose, but with the whole thing being, I don't care, whatever, like it doesn't matter. Everybody keeps trying to come at me with all this energy, like you need to shape up and get your life together. What are you doing? And I, like the response is obvious. Like, why? Who cares? Like, it's like Teflon. Like nobody can like respond to that energy. So it's great, and it worked out really well.
That worked well. All right.
Yeah.
Well, the first you get into round one, and it's a normal round one, but let's get right to it. I know we were talking in our DMs at one point that we all had to definitely talk about. I'm gonna jump right to it in our screen. I'll get the timestamp here.
Of course,
the famous.
Yeah, no, it's
where it is. I can find it in here. Let me put the screen back on.
What are we talking about here? What's going on here?
We are talking about. And it's actually back about, I think it's here. I want to say the timestamp is right.
Question number 7.
It's question number 7, which someone thought was question number 8.
For war. In what Disney
honestly, I think that
you're okay. Already.
That's you talking to the dog.
Just been talking to little Drew,
Not caring. It's actually very on brand for your character.
Is it when Kristen asked your name?
Lon Harris.
Yeah, until he said Lon Harris, you can see on my face. I had no idea. No idea. No, I just, here's what I'll say in my defense. Typically, they say the number of each question. In any other match I've been in, they'll be like, okay, question 5. Here's the question. They did not do that this time. There's no numbers. So I'm sort of trained to listen to that, and I didn't hear one. They also were leading right into asking the question by talking about how others not like Paul had a perfect round.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I just assumed no number. We were just talking about the perfect round. This must just be the perfect round question, and I'm going to do a bit with the little weird doll that Drew left for me. I'm sorry. Do you want to jump in?
It is so on brand.
Oh my!
It is very on brand.
Out of you.
Also,
while young men are
the
trained
fact
to be
that they kept talking about the perfect rounds for like the last 2 questions before this, and also your guys' name of final exam. They keep saying final before every question. They'd say final exam. Like here's question number.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like a lot of people are like, "Oh, he was doing a bit with the doll and he wasn't paying attention or whatever," and it really was not that. I was as focused on the game right there as I ever am or have been. I mean, I'm always a little bit thinking about doing a bit, but like for the most part, I was sort of locked in and paying attention. And the only thing that's frustrating is that I totally knew the answer immediately. Also, because we just did Mulan on Honest Trailers because the new one is coming out. So like that movie is very fresh in my mind, which is even how I was able to come back later and make like another reference to it because it's like I just watched Mulan, like I know this one. So that's a little frustrating. But honestly, I would be way more upset about this if we didn't otherwise do well, and it didn't really end up mattering. So yeah, it worked great as a sort of a character bit. It's people are enjoying it as a joke, which is great. And yeah, like I would be more upset if it like cost us the match, but it didn't. So.
But I asked, in the moment, were you like worried that it was gonna end up costing you something?
Oh, sure. I mean, but I wasn't worried like, oh, we're going to lose. I was worried like, oh, we're going to lose and it's going to be down to like 1 point or 2 points. And this would have made a huge difference. And that would be really like, that would bother me if like a dumb mistake had cost us a game. But no, I mean, like, I don't really sweat. Like I try to always think of this as like a show. Like it's a game and it's a competition, and like I'm a little bit competitive. Like I want to win. I'm not saying I don't want to win, but yeah, I try to like remember that like the main point is to make it fun and entertaining and exciting and intense for the people who are watching. And as long as it's all those things, even if I like screw up and look like an idiot, like that's okay because it's like all in the service of something bigger than me not looking like an idiot. And I've looked like an idiot on the internet many times. Still around, and it's fine. So
Okay,
pretty much every week.
Yeah, is that right? Like all the time.
Off-topic question, really fast, Lon.
Yeah,
Would you pay the $30 for Mulan?
Yeah, I probably will pay the $30 for Mulan just because. Yeah, I'm particularly curious about this one. I'm not actually a huge fan of all of these live action redos. Like, I didn't really like Beauty and the Beast. I didn't really like Lion King. I thought Aladdin was like okay.
Fine.
Cinderella was good, I thought.
Cinderella.
Yeah, I like Cinderella, but I mean, like this one, I think is like it seems like an interesting departure because it's not going to be the goofy. Like that's what, like I like the animated Mulan, but it is kind of undermined by how like shticky and goofy it is. It's sometimes like it's this kind of really well done, sort of more serious kind of story about this girl's journey, and then every once in a while you got to pause for like Harvey Fierstein and Eddie Murphy to like. Let's do a bit. And it's like, I'm excited to see that part of the story without the let's do a bit stuff.
Fair enough. Now, actually, going back real quick to the question itself, because of the league and how it is, did you even think for a second to challenge the idea that you didn't hear, you didn't understand that it was the 8th question and not the bonus question?
I mean, did it cross my mind that we could be like, hey, you didn't say the numbers of the rounds, or let's do a makeup question because I didn't realize. Like, it did, but no, I mean, I think as a team, we are, and I don't want to like. I don't really have a problem with people doing challenges if they think there's something challengeable. I know it's like a divisive issue in the community. I think like that's part of the game now. And if you think that there's a shot that you could get the extra point, that's your right as a competitor and go for it. But I think as a team, we try to be more like what I guess this isn't a spoiler. Like what Sam was saying on the broadcast last night that doesn't give away anything about the results, that, you know, like it's this, you know, I like the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law. If it's obvious that the person knew the right answer, I'd be like, oh, okay, we'll accept that. And so in that case, you know, I knew the right answer, but it was obvious that I didn't get it right within the time allotted. So I was like, all right, you got me. Like I was legitimately didn't get that point.
Okay. All right, before we move on real quick, I don't know if we got a couple of super chats. Just want to throw them in there. I did this one or not, but Galagos, Andres Galagos, we love this boy. I like the professor, but God, I love the delinquent.
Oh, that's like I've heard that from a lot of people that they enjoy the delinquent more, which is a relief because, you know, people like the professor. So I was nervous about switching just because what if people think this new bit is dumb? You know, and I want to like reverse and be like, I remember me, you know, like Halloween 3 to 4. We're like, oh, it's Michael Myers, I'm back. You know, I didn't want to like do that. And I was like, I could change again, but then it's just like chaos. And I'm just like coming in as a different thing every time. So I was very thankful that people dug the new bit and wanted to keep seeing it because that would have been, I don't know what I would have done otherwise.
Well, the best part is now if you get one more transformation in you, eventually you could do the whole like 3 faces of Mick Foley wrestling thing.
Yeah,
like, in the free for all, you come out the professor, the delinquent, and the liar.
There is this kind of like tension like in my mind, but I'm always kind of thinking like, is now the time? Do I do another? Like next season, like if I get traded next season, do I do a new character? And like now that's just always going to be on my mind that like, you know, now that switching is an option.
Right. And not to put pressure on, but I think Christian that'd be a great what if match. Lon Harris versus the professor.
Yeah. If we do like American Pickle style,
right.
Like I shave the beard on one side and like we
that'd be a lot of pressure probably, but you could handle it, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean it'd be fun to do something. I'm honestly surprised more people haven't tried because that's a wrestling thing. Like I just stole it from professional wrestling where people switch characters when they get bored with their old bit, you know, and you got to freshen things up. Like I remember when Hulk Hogan became Hollywood Hogan. Like it's like this is canon, you know. So like I'm sort of surprised that more people don't do stuff like that, just because it's fun to like reinvent yourself, you know, both as a player and as a bit.
Yeah, you gotta have that performance in you. Some of the competitors don't have that kind of. They're more about the trivia itself.
Sure, yeah. We'll see. I think it might become more of a thing.
Speaking of professional wrestling, have you seen there's a wrestler in AEW, which is what Jen Sturger is now part of.
Sure, yeah.
Called Orange Cassidy, and he's famous for sloth style.
No, I'm not familiar with
his entire bit is that he doesn't like try. And
like,
so he's like walking around with his hands in his pockets and all this.
Good bit, man. It's a good bit.
He does the thumbs up like at the bare minimum and like But then he's really good at wrestling, so it's like it's the great.
Yeah, that has to be part of it. I mean, you can't do I don't care and then suck. It has to be like I don't care and then like, oh, you're pretty good. But it's a really good bit because like, what do you throw at that person? Like, the more passionate you get, it just disappears into the black hole of like, but I don't care. Like, there's nothing you can do. It's really It's going to be a good one. I've never been up against Roca in any capacity. It's going to be the first time we've ever faced each other. I don't want to. He's up against good competitors, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
But should that, and I'm up against good competitors, so we'll see what happens in the tournament. Sabina is, Sabina's great, and I've been up against her before, and she knows her stuff.
I'm looking forward to that match, definitely.
Sure.
Also, Federer Smithana, the answer is Mulan, just in case you were wondering.
It was Mulan, and I immediately, I was like, training, of course. I could sing the song. I know it.
Yes.
Paul, was it Mulan or Meowlon?
One of those. Oh man, like it's going through my head the whole. It's really frustrating. We wrote parodies. Like if you go back and watch not that I'm trying to bill out trailers, but if you go back and watch the Mulan Australia, we wrote a whole parody of that song in the show. I listened to that song like over and over. Like I really should have gotten that one, man. Jeez, what a blunder.
So the next part I definitely want to ask about was the background, Drew's background computer situation. Were you on Drew's computer?
Yes, that was in the Drew space, as you can tell, because that's her background. Like this bit that I'm sort of trying to do, where it's like the delinquent is like tramping around, and he's always sort of staying somewhere else. It's hard to do. I have a studio apartment. You guys see one look. There's one look over there by the couch, and then there's one look by the window. And I've like used them all. Like if you go look at all of the delinquent promos and appearances, like it's basically like the Zillow walkthrough of my entire living. Like you guys have seen where I live at this point. So it's really hard to keep up this bit. And I've even been to the park across the street, and I've walked around the neighborhood. Like I'm running out. So Drew was kind enough to offer me her, the area where she shoots her videos, which has this green screen, which allows me to like week to week be like, now I'm here, which has made all of that a lot easier.
In the woods.
Right. So I was in the woods, and then I've done. Yeah, we'll save it. But right. So the problem is it's not my setup, and Drew can't be there with me during the match because like we wouldn't cheat, but they don't want to make it seem like I've got another competitor right there who could just tell me the answer. So she's not in the room, which is why this dumb thing happened. Like that whatever the setting on whatever we were using to do the green screen changed, and it just brought up her like generic backdrop, which is that weird smile image that is like the Video Drew logo, which does not make sense for me. It's not my logo, and I wasn't even like. I guess we were sort of doing like I had the Drew puppet, so I guess it was sort of I was in like a Video Drew.
You were pirating her Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Her nether realm, like her other realm.
Whatever her realm is, yeah. And I mean, even like we'd done promos where she was in one of the promos with me that week, and so like we were kind of establishing that as part of the story. But yeah, I just didn't. So she actually had to run in and like fix the thing That's what you didn't see on screen. Is like Drew literally ran in because she was in the other room to like hook it back up for me, and then ran out before the round started, so we couldn't potentially cheat. Not that we would have.
Right, of course.
So that's what happened there. But I think we played it off all right.
That's great.
It worked out well.
Technical issues,
Hey,
That's always fun to think about, especially with the matches now. For any like Schmoedown fans that are out there that have watched where the league has come from to what we have to go through now for this season, we were all really expecting really fun, cool things coming into the season. The Schmoedown really started to feel like it was coming into this really big production thing, especially with the way that the promos were going. And then we just kind of get blindsided with this. So sometimes, in my opinion, especially, and this is I enjoy just a little bit those tiny bits of technical difficulties, just because
of course,
it makes me feel like this is gonna sound so stupid, but like it still makes me feel like I'm watching my friends. Like I feel close, like it makes me feel close to it because it's relatable.
Of course, I think that makes total sense, and I think it's happening to all of it. Like I think that's one thing. Like obviously this has been horrible, and I'm not saying it's a good thing, but one thing that has come out of it is that we literally are all doing this together, and it has been like it connects everybody. Like celebrities are doing shows like this, and the Schmoedown is doing shows like this, and you guys do your show like this, and we're all working this way, and so it has like everybody now has Zoom experience and is used to sitting in their apartment and talking to people on their headphones, and so I think it's made everybody feel connected. And it does make you feel like we can all relate to like you're in the middle of a meeting or a call and the internet goes out or some crazy thing happens or your dog starts eating a pork chop bone or whatever. And, and it's like, that's really all, it's like relatable. It's like, well, yeah, everybody's going through the same thing at the same time.
Yeah. Yes.
I like that.
It's a nice little square to add to your Schmoedown bingo.
All right, exactly. Yeah, right. And it is like, as like we've had matches where it's like it's happening to all of us, and like sometimes it's like if LA has an interruption, like half of the Schmoedown is like immediately impacted.
Right. It's true. It's very true.
I'm waiting for the first earthquake during the Schmoedown. That'll be interesting.
Probably. 2020 going as it has been. We'll probably have that soon. Yeah.
All right, so you leave round one and you're down. You're down by a couple of points, or 1 point at that point. Going into round two. So they get spies. You did that at first, but then you get to spin, and you end up with John Carpenter.
Yes,
and you don't have to tell me. Go ahead.
Because there were some interesting things with this. We talked about it being in the digital space, so the way they do things is a little differently. And I wondered how you thought about. So they spin first, and you guys leave the stream. You guys are gone.
Right.
Yes. And they answer all their questions, whether they miss them or not. And then you guys come in at the end of of their questions to steal, which was a little. I mean, it's completely different to how we've done it before. Obviously,
right? It's a big change in sort of just even like momentum and the flow of it, really.
Like because you couldn't steal on the spot, which might shake them off their game. I was wondering how you felt about that, and
it is what it is. Like I get it, and it changes the game, but it in a way that I think you can sort of work with, and it is one advantage of having now done a few of these, is you kind of get used to this new way of thinking about it, like coming in afterwards on like cleanup duty instead of being there in the moment and thinking it through as they're thinking it through, which is what I'm used to doing. I felt pretty fortunate that they got spies, which is, I think, a really tough category just generally because it's so broad. Like I like John Carpenter is a munchable chunk, like Adam Sandler is a munchable chunk. You can be like, like SNL movies, which has come up a few times recently, like bite size, like there's 11, there's 15, there's 20. You can read about them. You can look up the IMDb. You can be generally prepared. Spy movies, like going back to like the 30s. I mean, there's hundreds. Right? You could never watch them all or learn them all or study them all. It's like, well, I remembered everything about The Recruit, but I forgot about Spy Game. Or I got to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but I missed Saboteur. And it's just like, or like the Flint movies or the Bond movies. Anytime you're talking about decades like that, I think that's a dangerous category So yeah, as soon as I saw that they got spy movies, it was like, oh, okay, that probably plays in our favor, just because no matter how good you are, there are opportunities to get stuck.
And they got stuck.
And they did. Yeah, they got stuck. So I think that was the bigger issue, was the category than necessarily the gameplay of how the steals went down.
Right.
I kind of related to what you were talking about before. Now the audience gets to hear all these little deliberations of the managers talking, and like it's kind of interesting how like the things have developed. I mean, this is a minor. I'll do one minor spoiler. Everybody wants to mute real quick, like tomorrow, for our last night pay-per-view. Rather, sorry, last night pay-per-view. When like Gucci and Dan like almost like talked in code. At one point, like why they had this like code worked out before and talking about the betting around. They're like, I'm gonna do January. Were you thinking February or April and May or something like that? It was like so this is the way it's now. You're having like we're getting the ins and outs, and now you guys are having to respond to that idea, trying to figure out new ways to do that. It's kind of like a living, breathing thing at this point. But
yeah, I mean, there is definitely a like one-upsmanship to it, and everybody trying to get this extra edge. And it like I won't give anything away, but yeah, like I think everybody is thinking about stuff like, do we have secret codes and messages, and how do we communicate this? The one thing that I didn't think was a big deal, that again, this is Paul really thinking about the game more than me, which is just like, I know the answer. It was the Poseidon adventure. Like it's just like Paul is very much thinking about, we don't want to give away what we're putting on the wheel. Like we don't want other people to know what we're thinking of as our strengths, because if we're studying something, like we don't want other people to know. Maybe they're going to think it's a weakness of ours. And like Paul takes it to even the next level of like, I believe there are times he will drop questions that he doesn't think are essential for him to get, so that people think there are pockets in his knowledge. And like, I can't confirm that, but I have a sneaking suspicion. And I think he's not the only one that is doing stuff like that. It's getting to that level. And I mean, I don't really like, I'm too much of a egomaniac to make you think I don't know something. I'm like out there in front. But like there are people that are thinking about the game in that way, for sure. And especially when you're talking about the mental game, even more than like strategy, like getting in someone's head and like getting to them. I think a lot of people are thinking about, how do I do that? Especially over something like in person, you can like literally get in their face. Here, you've got to be clever and thoughtful about, how do I like undermine someone remotely?
Right.
I mean, this is the Paul Oyama who famously looked up Dan Murrell's letterbox to see what movies he was watching to study for the Schmodown, and then Dan Murrell famously found out about that and then made a fake letterbox to throw off Paul Oyama. So I mean, like,
yeah, no, it is crazy out there, and Paul is not the only one. Paul is not the only one spying on other people's letterbox. He's not the only one using sock puppet accounts to watch what other people are doing. He is not the only one. And I'm not even going to say Paul's done this. Here's the craziest one that I have heard about, is signing up for another player's Patreon under an assumed name, so that you can watch their streams and learn what they're watching and studying. Like, these people are diabolical. Like, that's crazy.
The funny thing, you mentioned that, like, that's actually a long time strategy for a long time ago. We joked because I run Ben and Drew's Patreon, and Billy Belford signed up, and we could have sworn that he was John Roca signing up to his team action, to figure out what team action was doing.
My nickname in the Action Army is not Roca. That's my nickname in the Action Army.
It was our Roca at one point.
There's a story behind that.
But it's true, they are.
What's really funny when we were in
Bananas,
and Paul, the PLD up there, was a little bit inebriated and was trying to explain that to John Roca while he was having a dab about the John Roca in the Action Army. And John Roca was completely confused.
I can imagine he was. He's like, wait, what? What's
right under the bus, Billy.
What's a Discord? What are you talking about? Not familiar with this. We didn't have that in CompuServe. I should not. It's so stupid of me. I'm looking, I must be the same age. I have no right whatsoever to make old man jokes about John Roca.
But you can't help it, though. I can't either.
They gotta be good old man jokes, though. They can't be the same run of the mill stuff.
I try. Listen, I try to put my own spin on it.
CompuServe is a deep cut.
Oh, see, Video Drew has joined us and says he's good at Discord. See, I spoke completely out of turn. I'm not good at. I don't do Discord. Who the hell am I?
Again, Ben and Drew, the youngsters of the Schmodown, have no clue how to use a Discord. So
I'm revamping their Discord as we speak, and they're like, "What are you doing?" Okay.
I was looking at like behind the scenes Twitch. Like I thought Twitch was like you hit a button, you're live on Twitch, like YouTube, you know, like you hit the button and now you're live on Twitch. There's like control boxes in this panel and that panel and this. You got to get a crown to get a gift to get this to pop this up, and you have the emotes, and it's like no idea. So yes, I'm sorry if you're watching this, John Roca. Like I'm exactly in the same boat as you. Don't listen to my old man nonsense. Really stupid.
We do appreciate and love old man nonsense on the Call to Action podcast. You cannot see my co-host.
We are old men as well, so we can't do anything about it.
It's just ridiculous at this point. Video just saying, do you have to say this legally? And like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm intimidated by John Roca. He's very intense. He's a large and imposing gentleman, and he's an outlaw. Who knows what he's going to do? Literally an admitted criminal.
There you go. Oh, man. All right, so you do get John Carpenter at this point. Now, you seem pretty excited about that, so you obviously were sliding in those small munches.
Yeah, no, I am just personally a huge John Carpenter fan, and like he was, like I used to just watch, growing up, I loved comedies, and that was really all I watched, and there were only a few filmmakers like Sam Raimi and Tim Burton and John Carpenter were the ones I got into that was like, oh, you know what? Horror is also good. And I've sort of been a horror movie fan ever since. So he's a really important filmmaker to me personally, and like The Thing and Halloween and like these Big Trouble in Little China. These were like really formative movies for me. So as soon as we got John Carpenter, I know like he knows those movies and he caught up a little bit too. Like I know a few of these were on his like watch list or whatever. But yeah, as soon as I saw it come up, I was like, okay, I feel pretty confident with this particular batch of films. Like there's a few I haven't seen, like Vampires in a while, but even that I feel like I could go 3-4 cast members deep and I like remember what it's about.
The James Woods one?
That's the James Woods one, and it's a whole franchise, but he only did the first one, so I don't have to worry about like Vampires 3, Los Muertos del whatever. Like I don't know.
Like what's the
cue to speak Spanish, Billy?
It's like 9 of them, and there's only
they're right, exactly, like Tremors, or it was one of those that like went on forever, but only the first one matters for that category. There's a few dangerous late Carpenters, like The Ward, which we got a question about, and Ghosts of Mars that like people sort of forget. That's always like the danger zone. I've said this about Jodie Foster also, which is like one of the wheel slices now, and which sounds good because when you think of Jodie Foster, you're like, I know Jodie Foster movies like Panic Room and Silence of the Lambs, but you forget like you're talking about like a 4 or 5 decade career, and worked consistently since she was a child and like directed films and like it's crazy. Like, you know, The Little Girl That Lives Down the Lane from the 70s is a cool movie and you could get a question about it, but I doubt that's really fresh in most people's minds. So yeah, those are like minefield categories, I think, where, you know, like there are those dangers that you just things you forget about. Yeah. Escape from LA is insane, but that one I know really well. I saw that in theaters. I remember that.
Oh, you were excited.
The lava surfing movie, right? That's where they surf in the lava.
Yes, yeah, that's it, right. Steve Buscemi is Mapped to the Stars Eddie, and Bruce Campbell. That also came up. Bruce Campbell was the Surgeon General of Beverly Hills in that.
That's right.
And I saw the excitement in your eye, like when they actually escaped from
those are my movies. Like I'm like, okay, now we're on a roll. There was one time I think when my brother and I were up and we got a question about like Spaceballs or Three Amigos or one of the movies that we grew up watching. You could see in like our faces, like, oh, there's nothing you can throw me about Spaceballs that I'm not going to get. It's ridiculous.
It was basically.
I think it was. It was what kind of creature is John Candy in Spaceballs, and it's a Mog, half man, half dog. He's his own best friend. Yeah.
Yes.
God, the late great John Candy.
Yeah. So I mean, like, there's literally, I don't think there's a question you could throw me about, as long as it's not like behind the scene, you know, like who's the whatever cinematographer, or whatever. If it's about the movie, I'm gonna get it.
It was impressive.
You got it.
It was impressive with Paul immediately pulling Carpenter's first film.
Yeah,
Dark Star. Like right after that. I mean, like not even. It was like it's there. Like
he's really fast, and he does have that like Ethan Irwin Chandru like encyclopedic quality where it's just like it just gets in the file folder and it's just like there, and he didn't drink and smoke like I did, and so it's like it comes up quickly when you try.
I've been saying for years that the Schmodown it's not what you know, it's what you can recall in a 15 second period.
Exactly. And a lot of it really does, and I'm talking to other competitors who sort of approach problems differently, you realize that a lot of it is like your approach. Like sometimes the way that my brain works and the way that I remember things is great. Like when it's directors and it's just like, who directed this? And I'm like, it was that guy. Like, and I just like remember. But then there's other times, and a great example, I did really terrible in the third free-for-all. I was out after the first round because I got this question, which is a movie I know, so it's like horrible. It was like, this Ridley Scott movie stars Julianne Moore, Gary Oldman, and Ray Liotta. And so the way my brain works is I just like went to Ridley Scott's filmography in my head and just started like, boop, 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 just going down like, nope, nope, Gary Oldman not in that one, Ray Liotta not in that one. And that's a bad way to do that question. Instead, you should be like triangulating those three actors or whatever somebody else would do. And it's Hannibal is the answer. And I didn't come up with it because it was just like, well, I'm thinking Anthony Hopkins, or I started too early. I was like, is it White Squall? They're not in White Squall. And like, by the time I would have come out, like I would have gotten there eventually, but you know, time runs out before you get there. So that feels dumb, but it's just like, it's not that I didn't know Hannibal. It's just like the way my brain works. And, you know, like there are questions like that all the time where it's just like it attacks it from an angle you're not prepared for and you get thrown on your heels a little. Because, 15 seconds is not a long time.
No, it's not. And
then it gets into the strategy of, should I use a JTE now? Because maybe I'll get there, but maybe I won't. It's early in second round, first round, so...
Yeah, it's like right. There's a lot that's going on in your head in addition to trying to pull this like random piece of information, in the moment. And sometimes you just like don't get there for whatever reason. And that's why I always say like if you look at the message boards, you listen to the fans, it's always like everything is so definitive. It's like if you don't get this answer, you didn't know that movie, you don't know that genre. You're not as good at the person you were up against. Like, I think the vast majority of people in the whole league, honestly, probably know a very comparable amount about movies. And, there's a few, obviously, outliers. But I think for the most part, everybody has a very similar base of knowledge. It's just, it's like what happens that day and what questions you happen to get. And, like, there's a lot more sort of randomness and luck and sort of like that day to it than... this person is always going to be better than this person.
Drew's going to call you out again. The message boards. Come on, Drew. It's an old thing. It's an old man thing too. We all love message boards.
Listen, I've been on Usenet. I've seen the BBSs. You kids can't keep me off Prodigy.
Yes.
This is what I'm saying. And I'm going after Roca, like old man Roca, not like us kids. Am I right, bros?
Yeah, right.
Who likes marshmallow? Who's into trance? It's like ridiculous. It's stupid.
That's true.
It should be embarrassed.
So you basically go and you run the category. At that point, you got to feel pretty confident going into the third round at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also just generally of the opinion that round two is like in 3-round matches anyway. Round two is the game to me. Like round three is your chance to like come back if you had a bad round two, but like round one at this point, like I feel like, and maybe Christian will yell at me or PJ, or whatever. I think the question writers do a great job. I think this was probably a strategic decision, but I feel like round one's a little easier now than it used to be. I used to get stuck a lot more on round one, and now like you'll occasionally get a, kind of a tricky one. But yeah, I think for the most part, round one, everybody is doing pretty good. You maybe go up or down by one or two, especially in a team situation where you've got two chances sort of to get every question. So really, it's like round two and what you spin and how it hits you. I mean, I think we saw, can we talk about Smets Chandru? Is that part of the...
We're going to talk about that next anyway, so you might...
Well, that's not going to spoil anything for people?
No,
like, I think you saw it. I think you saw the momentum. I think you saw the momentum of round two really have a huge impact in that match where it's like Smets got Harry Potter and like you could tell that it's a topic that he knows, but just like those questions were just hitting him in kind of an off way, and then Chandru was there to do the pickups, and I think that's all it takes to really like throw you know, like that, you could be almost at the precipice after a bad round 2, which is what sort of happened to the Pride. They didn't even do that poorly on spy movies. They did pretty good, but we just did so well that like, well, now they're on their heels going into round 3, and that does affect everything else that happens.
If you go into round 3 with the potential of a TKO, then that's never a good thing. I mean, you're always but like when you're far enough around that you have to get definite points here, then it's kind of scary at that point.
Yeah, and I mean those 3s, you know, 2s are usually like pretty accessible. 3s are pretty tough, especially because it's only in a teams match. You know, like one person has that sort of burden on them. Like those are pretty tough questions a lot of the time. So yeah, you're always thinking about that especially if you're in a can't miss situation. You never want to be in like down to 1 or 2 questions in a can't miss situation. But obviously with 5-pointers, it's sort of inevitable. It happens all the time, but that's never a good feeling where it's like, I can't afford to miss this. The pressure's really on, even if like me, you try not to care that much.
I mean, the worst point when you have to hit the 5-pointer, knowing that even if you hit the 5-pointer, you're going to be only going up by 1 or 2. So therefore, the other team has
and it's like if they get it, you know, then yeah, it tips their way. And I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like when so many matches, I mean, watching recently, like all of these matches for the most part, unless it's like a very one-sided victory, like they all kind of come down to the last 1 or 2 questions. So that's why it's so weird that people keep jumping to like, well, this player is so much commandingly better than this player. It's like you're talking about literally 1 or 2 questions would have tipped the scales. And I mean, Deep 13 was a good example too. Like if Whitney got Grand Budapest Hotel, that whole match plays out differently. And that's like 1 question. He's like, he misheard Ray Fiennes' Ray Liotta. If he didn't realize, you know, if he hears it correctly, if he gets to that answer, the whole, you know, who knows? It could have been Deep 13 goes on this whole run, and the story is, wow, what a disappointment final exam was. And it's just like, you know, like that literally 1 moment can make all of this difference.
And that's interesting because like the Schmodown is trying to be more of like a sport. And that's something you typically don't see in a sport that you do see in the Schmodown, of this like 1 loss and suddenly people write you off as being not good anymore. 1 bad day.
I mean, people recognize that, like NBA players have bad games, or like baseball seasons are so long, like players can go on like streaks where they're bad for weeks or months.
Baseball, and then, if you're only good 30% of the time, you make the Hall of Fame. Like,
and I think that that's also kind of true on the show. Like if you've ever had a really good match, especially against like a really strong competitor, like you're really good at movie trivia. Like that's all it takes, really. Like if you went to a bar and there were 2 strangers doing movie trivia and they both seemed really good, and then one of them won, you'd be like, both of those people are very good at movie trivia. You wouldn't be like, that guy's good at movie trivia, that lady sucks. Like it would, you know, it just like wouldn't occur to you to think that way. But I think when you're watching these competitions and there's numbered scores and there's these promos and it's built up in that way, it does feel like these are significant, important. Each round matters, you know.
That can also be a little bit of a mob mentality comes to that, because you have a lot of passionate fans that are all willing to, they're ready to pass judgment on somebody that has a bad match.
And that's part of being a fan, and I totally get that. Like you're very passionate about the people you like, and you don't want to see the people you don't like win. And like it does feel like, you know, every point matters and it's significant. I'm just saying, like looking at it from the other perspective, like most of the people I come up against, I honestly feel like this could go either way. Like I rarely feel like, oh, we're going to clean up, you know, like it just because everybody knows their stuff. Like I know all of these people off camera and they're all friggin' watched a ton of movies, guys. Like literally every single person in the show is watching a lot of movies and knows their stuff. Like
that's what they do.
Yeah. Like, and if you go on like these practice, you know, like everybody on Swag I see on these practices, like they're all hitting most of these questions like every time. It's really like these matters of degrees of who's, you know, winning.
Video Drew said it's all Nerd Chronic's fault. I believe it. Yep. We're blaming
of course.
Eric.
It's right. Well, yeah, I mean, like it feels like a sport when you're watching a sport, you know, like it is. It's like you want to get wrapped up in the drama and the action, and that's part of it is like, oh, I can't believe he didn't know that, you idiot. And like that's fine and great, and I get it. But you know, yeah, I think like that's something to keep in mind too, is like, hey, if you can come into this league, especially at this point when it's so hyper competitive, and like hold your own at all and not get a few of these ridiculous questions right. Like, that's good. Like, you know way more than most people about movies. Like, holy crap.
Right. Oh, here's a good question in the chat, actually. You mentioned this once on Chill, but you said Brad now Gilmore said your character work might be getting in the way of your gameplay. What is your opinion on that?
Did he say that? That son of a bitch.
Put that out, Jake.
I actually used to be. No, he's great. I actually used to be way worse about that. Like when I first started as the professor, like the Cody Hall match that so many people reminisce about and love, and even my first match against Mark Bernardin, and or a lot of those early matches, I was real because I really thought about it as a show at that point. Like I really wasn't focused that much on like I gotta win. I didn't really feel like I had a chance. Like I knew, like, you know, I worked with Dan and I saw what he was doing on the show, and I'm like, I can't. I'm not. He knows like 100 times more. Like it didn't seem like I was going to come in and be a legit competitor. I sort of thought I would come in and be the goofy clown, funny professor guy. So yeah, at first I had to like really train myself. Don't just think about bits. Like, don't just think about, am I going to reference Mizuguchi next or Kieslowski, which would be funnier. Actually try to like answer all of these questions and see if you know this stuff. Now it's a little bit like I kind of have like 4 or 5 ideas for funny nonsense to say before, so I don't have to think about it during the match. I just have like a thing. Like there's a thing, I think I've been doing it for a few weeks, so it's not a spoiler, where I'm like, speaking as a 12-time Schmodown international champion, Christian really does not like it. Like I can already tell that he is like, because it feels like new people are watching and they're going to be like, oh, this guy's the 12-time international champion. And like, I think it's really funny. So that's the thing. Like I worked out way in advance, and it's just like whenever you didn't think of anything to say during this beat, just say that. And like the other one is like, can I crash at your place, or like that? Like, hey, Roga, that looks comfy. Can I hang out in your closet back there? So that stuff I don't have to think about. I just know I'm going to do already.
Or we're still doing this, or this match is still going.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of it is just prepackaged. Yeah, so I don't have to think about it during the match, and I can just like say one of the things I know I'm going to say. So that's been helpful. But no, I don't, because you can also see like sometimes when I actually have to focus, like I'll shut up and stop doing shtick and actually try to get questions right. Like it does happen.
Well, that was great during the technical difficulties because you had to get out of character and be like, all right, I'm going to get Drew in here to help me. And then you came back from that with, oh, this is still going on, which is perfect.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, right. But also that downtime gives me a moment where I'm not thinking about trivia to be like, what would be a funny thing to say when I come back?
Nice.
So, you try to like time manage as best you can. It is because like, I do still, I'm just a ham. Like, I like being goofy and making people laugh and being an idiot. And so, I don't want to not make it entertaining and be a character. Like I'm not as interested if it's just me being me answering questions. Not to denigrate anybody who does that and is amazing at it, and like
shots fired at Dan Murrow. You heard it.
Yeah, I couldn't do what he does, and I've never had a match that was as like white knuckle as him versus Ethan or Roca, or like those matches are incredible. I know I'm not a competitor on that level, so I'm like, but hey, what if? Right. Crazy hobo beard, right, guys?
Wow, the crazy guy.
This guy doesn't care. He's ridiculous. Don't listen to him, kids.
That's why the Delinquent's so great, because we're kind of in an era of like people are taking things really seriously, and then there's the Delinquent, and it's
right. Great. I mean, like that's why I'm really thankful for players, like Video Drew or even Chandru, who are like bringing this comic character. Like I think Chandru is an amazing heel. I know people, he's so good at it that people really are taking a distaste to him personally. He is not that guy behind. He's the sweetest, nicest guy. He is not this jerk. I promise. He's just really good at it. Like he sort of found this niche, and the more people hate it, the more we're all like, no, it's good. Keep going. Like even more. Like, no, it's going so well. Mwah, it's perfect. Just be horrible. You're doing great.
Brandon Hanna the same way in a way.
Yeah, I mean, and like that's I love that. That's like one of my favorite parts of the game. And then, like that's one of the things that really attracted me to it in the first place, is that wrestling connection, that performance connection. And yeah, so like I really, not to denigrate the people who aren't as into doing that and are coming at it from a different perspective, which great. It's a balance, but I really respond to that and the other people that are bringing that sort of sense of fun. And
we're on the same page here. We love the more character aspect as well. We like a good trivia match, absolutely, but the characters are what's differentiated between that and bar trivia or kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, right, like I think any group of people could get together and figure out what their common trivia sort of knowledge is and make a show. And like what sets this apart is like that it's this spectacle and it's kind of ridiculous. And yeah, like some people are being, it's the team action show. I mean, exactly. Yeah. Like what Bateman and Guy bring to it is that personality and that over the top sensibility. And like that to me is what makes all of this fun.
And that's what actually brings there's a lot of fans out there that think that's why the Action Army got so huge in the first place. We're probably the biggest fan faction there is. And then people are responding really well to the Delinquent now. I mean, you can tell that all of a sudden you're getting this big response.
What's the fan base called? The Delinquency? Is that what the fan base?
That's a great idea. We could coin it right now. I don't think there is one yet.
Coin the Delinquency.
Yeah.
Like that.
All right. Yeah, that's fun.
I'm making a fan page right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good idea.
But yeah, that's what I liked about it as well. So, you go through round 3 and you don't have to do much. You get to be just a character and watch the prize.
Hanging out.
Yeah, which is always in sort of an enviable position to be in because those questions are hard. So it's nice to maybe not have to answer them and just get to let them come up against it. But no, they were doing pretty well, and like they're both like, look, they know their stuff. It's exactly like what I'm saying. Like the after watching our match, people are like, or all of the talk about sort of Rachel especially, and like it's always like it's so relentlessly negative. And if you miss this question or that this one time, and it's like they both know their stuff. I know that any random 3 questions, you could easily get a situation where Ben and Rachel are going to nail all 3. So. Anytime you're in that position, you're like, this is 10 points I could potentially have to make up against almost anybody in the game is going to pick. Like, I sometimes know the 5-pointers and it's like just this random thing that I happen to know. So yeah, like you're always thinking about that, like in terms of doing the math in your head of like, how many points do we need to stay ahead? And like, how many of these questions can we drop? And, because it's always like, I'm always assuming the other people are probably going to get them right.
You mentioned how it's like a kind of random. A lot of time it is random that people know things because like one of the things people love to argue about in the Schmodown fandom is the difficulty of questions. Yes. And like what should be this difficulty? A lot of it, for one person, this is a 2-point question. For another person, this is a 5-point question.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that is really like, especially as I think the classic Schmodown, or sort of when I first even joined, it was a little bit more niche. You got a lot of like more action oriented, more sci-fi, a little male dominated, maybe even a little white male dominated. Yeah. And I think that one thing they've tried to do very much to the league's credit and the creative team and whatever is bring in a few more people to write questions and sort of broaden the scope of what kind of movies we talk about. And so, yeah, I mean, that changes the dynamic of everything. And it really does indicate like, yeah, it could seem like somebody is like knows everything about every movie and it's easy for them. But once you throw them a genre they're maybe not as up on, or one they weren't thinking about, a dance movies or a rom-coms or a Nora Ephron, say, it changes everything and the dynamic can really shift in a moment.
True, very true, very true. So Dabney Coleman, the final answer, and you knew it.
I did. I mean, not immediately, but honestly, I figured it out. I mean, I had like a couple thoughts in my head about who it might be, but then when I heard their back and forth where they were discussing it, I was like, oh, I think it is Dabney Coleman. I bet it's Dabney Coleman. So I did get to it before I would have gotten it, I believe.
All right. The funny thing is I don't think Ben was trying to get to Dabney Coleman. I think Ben was trying to get to Alan Alda.
I think so too.
He said Max, which was wrong. He said Max, which was wrong. Yeah. But I just while they were thinking, I figured out that it was Dabney Coleman. But yes, Ben and Rachel they were going to get to Alan Alda, which is the incorrect answer.
Correct. Right. Correct. Well, let's look at. I showed it already. The stats by our wonderful Dr. Meggs. She is trying to supplant Frankie numbers. It's Meggs numbers.
Wow! Look at this.
goes all into it, and
like
you have
grid, and we got
it's she does everything right. You got in round one, you see you got 9-9. Goddard had a 9. Oyama had 9. Silvestrini had 6.
Lon, you had a 5, but technically it was a 6 almost.
I mean, I knew the animated answer, but and release dates is really like I'm great at release dates if it's from my childhood or like through high school and then college, especially college because I was on the UCLA. I was like the film editor of the UCLA student newspaper, so I used to do a lot of like the junkets and the reviews. So those I remember like the year like that. I was like, oh, I was a sophomore, 1998. Right. So those are great. But as soon as it gets into the aughts and I was just like a man and like I stopped paying attention to years. So I can always I can get a pocket. I'm never, if you could go back, I think, and look at every release date answer I've ever given. I don't think I'm ever more than like 3 years off.
Right.
Because I can always zero in on the era. I always know like, so I think what was this one? Training Day?
Yes, yes.
I was like, oh, it's early
on.
It's like post 2000, but it's before like 2004. And like I knew it was in there, but I just like I don't remember the year 2001 versus the year 2003, except for a few notable incidents. But I don't really like remember the whole year and like what I was doing that year as opposed to later because I was just like a grown dumb adult doing adult things, and it wasn't like I was living here and I was studying this and whatever.
It makes sense.
I was hanging out with that weird guy. Like I was just a dude. So so those are hard. And like I can't. That's one of those things. Like I can study like going back and like watching movies or reading like wiki entries sort of. But like I just can't force my brain to like read a list. Like here's every movie that came out in this year. Put it in there. Like I don't. It doesn't work that way. My brain doesn't work that way.
Fair enough. Looking a little more at the stats real quick. At the accuracy, Final Exam had an 84% accuracy in that match.
It would have been better if I had not messed up Mulan and maybe gotten a few other little things. But it's not bad. I think like again, like the story of this match from our perspective, I think was Carpenter, which we were just able to like squeak through it, and like really saved our butts.
Which is something that's actually the stats remind me of that I forgot to mention, even though we just watched the match right before. The Pride actually spun John Carpenter first.
Yes.
And then spun away from it. How different would that have been possibly if they had gotten John Carpenter?
I mean, like some of those Carpenter questions, like I think, it did help that both Paul and I are like fans and just happen to know his work. Like the Ward coming to us right away, which is a little bit of an obscure title. I could see people thinking his career as a director kind of paused a little earlier than that. So I don't know if they were necessarily really like some of them were pretty easy. Like, Alice Cooper, I think everybody kind of remembers.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. I think they might have gotten 3 or 4 correct.
Right.
Which is what they got in Spies. If they take Carpenter, then you guys can't get Carpenter, and you have to answer something else, which might have changed the game.
That's
and that's true too. I think there were like spy movies. Like we didn't get that Kingsman question, and like I think that's an intimidating category. There were other things on the wheel that I think we would have probably done pretty well with as well. Carpenter was like best case scenario for us for sure.
I honestly think that someone should have challenged that Kingsman question because the question says mantra. Yeah. And the answer is not a mantra, it's a coded phrase. The mantra in the movie is manners maketh men, which is what both of you honestly,
I've seen Kingsman a few times. I do like as soon as they said the answer, I was like, oh yes, I do remember that from the movie. I think that was one of those cases where, like as soon as you hear the wrong answer, which in that case we heard their version of it, that exactly what you just said, you're like, well, that is in the movie. I remember that. So they must have just gotten something small wrong because that's the right answer. And like once you go down that trail, you're done. Yeah. You're not thinking about anything else. So I think if I had gone in totally clean slate and you were just like, what's the secret saying from Kingsman, I might have gotten there because I have seen that movie a few times and like not even that long ago. Like I don't know. I think I might have gotten there, but the fact that we got led down that wrong path immediately by them saying an answer that is very plausible, and we were just like, oh, it must be just like a slight tweak difference, I think is what threw us off and made it like so neither of us, it didn't even occur to me that there might be a totally alternate answer because just like you said, like that's definitely in that movie. I recall them all saying it,
And they say manners maketh man like a lot in that movie.
Yeah, no, it's like Colin Firth's catchphrase almost. Yeah,
they say the thing on the phone like twice in the whole movie, and that's like it. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's also not as common a phrase. Oxford's not brogues. It's just not a thing you hear all the time. Whereas manners maketh men is like that's a pretty well known. Like it's in a Sting song.
In the previews for that movie was manners maketh man. Like that was like embedded into your head. Like,
exactly. Englishman in New York is the Sting song. That phrase also appears. Music trivia schmodown.
Paul doesn't know about or music, so
yeah. No, I mean Thrawn in the chat room is saying it's misdirection. And like totally fair. Like I have no problem with the question. Like it's totally fair. I'm just explaining like that was our thought process and I think where we went wrong. But yeah, no, legit question. Like, yeah, mess with this. I'm into it.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta love getting messed with sometimes. It's part of the game. It's part of the fun.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's part of the deal.
So, well, all right. So at that end, now you watch them not be able to come back, and you have the TKO, and you're all psyched and ready to go. And now you know the reward for that is getting to face the Shazam team. So
yes, we're great, delightful, great, wonderful. Yeah, like the best team in the league. Awesome, cool. Thank you.
It's like we talk about the older Schmodown, kind of like when you first came in the league. And that was like, there were only like 2, maybe 3 like really good teams that were like a step above everybody else. And those were the teams you had to worry about facing.
Yeah.
Now there's like 10 teams that are like legitimate title contender teams, if not more. Like,
yeah. I mean, like it was always a tough league. There were always a lot of people in this league since I've joined anyway, who like really knew their stuff and had it on lockdown, but it not like today. Today is bananas. Like there are just a ton of just like sluggers who just like know all this stuff, and it's like a steel trap, and it's crazy. And at first, I think it was like the Inner Geekdom League got so stacked, and now I think it's sort of spread to the whole league. I mean, the fan leagues obviously are a big part of it. That it used to be like us LA entertainment media digital industry goofballs, and like now that we have this influx of experts coming in, it's just crazy. And like the level of the competition is off the charts. And so yeah, you can field 10-12 teams where both players are really good, and it's just like, what do? You're getting like almost perfect game after almost perfect game after sudden death, and it's just going to keep happening. Like all of these games are going to keep coming down to like the 5-pointer or sudden death because everybody knows their stuff.
Yeah.
So how? I guess we can kind of get into some spoilers now. We can talk. Yeah. We'll break this down probably more fully tomorrow on Call Live because this is about Final Exam obviously versus the Pride. But you did have the big match yesterday.
Yes.
How confident? Like, so what were you when you're going to this match? How confident were you? Did you think you had a good shot? Were you ready to go?
I mean, like, look, I'm pretty good. Paul Oyama is amazing. I always feel like we have a good shot, and like I've been saying, like I feel like any very solid player or team has a good shot against any other very solid player or team on any given day. Like there are players who are just so exceptional and locked in and like they almost never lose. But I really do feel that way. Like I don't think there's ever like it's impossible that this person won't take that person or whatever. So yeah, I always feel like we've got a pretty good shot, but man, Brendan and Bibbs are like two of the strongest players. And I mean, Bibiani just like we first met many years ago working at a video store. Like we watched a lot of the same movies at the same time. Like he knows a ton of stuff, and he stood next to me as I learned about a lot of these movies. So yeah, I mean, I would never just expect to breeze past that guy. Like he's a
right.
He knows everything about everything. He's just like a brilliant guy. And Brendan too, for a guy who's, up and coming in his age, he's extremely dedicated and super knowledgeable already. The guy, like he's making movies, So it's a really tough matchup. I think it's a really good, pretty even matchup, and yeah, it'll be a great match.
All right.
I don't want to. This might be a spoiler. It could be a spoiler.
We said it's okay. We said spoilers.
Yeah. So spoiler. My favorite thing about that match was the Dutch angles.
Yes, Bibbs is shooting from like way below a very like extreme angle, and also we were having a little bit of some technical issues during the match. So sometimes he's like going in like sped up motion. I don't know how much of that came through on the stream, but sometimes he was like glitching and going through sped up motion, and it was a little surreal to be trying to do movie trivia in that it's sort of that style. But I also think it added to the drama of the match on some level. Like, it was kind of exciting to be trying to do movie trivia under these increasingly desperate circumstances.
I was wondering if something's going on in LA like during that time frame, because of all your internets were pretty much
right. It was sort of like sequentially, like it started with me, but then it spread to Bibbs, and then Brendan started dropping out, and then Paul in Hawaii was having issues, and so it was sort of like a worldwide internet unfortunate whatever. But I was very glad that by the time Dan and Ethan got going, things had seemingly cleared up. Yeah,
I was wondering if in the middle of the break, like Christian, like hardwired like Ethernets to everywhere, you got to put this in now or something.
Brendan was tethered to his cell phone to the end of the match. I know that is true. Like, he actually had to like shut down his regular internet and use 5G.
Right.
So I hope he didn't get COVID, because we all know that's what causes it.
What's going on?
I'm just kidding, folks. It's not what causes COVID. Put your mask on. You don't worry about 5G. It's okay.
All right. So it was a tough match, you guys. Obviously, Shazam, you said it all. They have such a powerful fan base, knowledge base.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, and that's a case where, just like we were saying before, you get to round 3 and you're like, well, these guys are going to hit these. Like, they're going to, like, they know it. They know their stuff. They know movies.
Yeah.
So you're going in like, again, we have to get all of these right to even stay alive against these two,
Right. And it's, at that point. And then at that point, they still have their chances to win. And so it was hard.
Yeah, I mean, even if we had hit our 5, they could have hit their 5, and then they still win. So, I mean, you could be playing your best game ever and still drop it to those guys, because they're just amazing. And they were, like early issues, Brendan got sort of thrown off his feet at the very beginning. That's a pretty hard question for round 1, by the way, the running scared question.
Yeah.
I knew it, but I'm an old man, like if I was a child, I might not have gotten it correct. So yeah, so I mean, I think he recovered really well, and it's like, what are you gonna do? Sometimes like the momentum hits, and that's it.
I have to ask: was this a one-time little bit with the delinquent kid, or is this something that we might be seeing more of in the future?
I loved it. I wrote these guys an email this morning, like, that was so cool. Thank you so much. Like, it was really flattering, and so we like, they did this whole sort of homage, and I would love to keep playing around with that. I felt like they kind of it kind of was a perfect circle, though. Like, they kind of brought it in for a lane, because when they were first doing it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna like seduce Brendan the whole time. I'm gonna be like, Brendan, there's bleachers out back. I'm gonna meet you there 30 minutes after the match. Like, I had a whole plan, but then they sort of brought it in for such a nice landing. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna let them have their moment, and I'll just pretend that I'm making meth in the background.
Also, Brendan doesn't work as the delinquent kid, because Brendan is so like, at the end of that match, he is like popping, like even the humping of the buzzers against the founding fathers, like he is into it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I don't honestly know. Like, I feel like sometimes that gives me an advantage that I'm not like, I don't, like, if I lose, it's like, it was fun. Like, I don't have that. But at the same time, like, that's, it worked. Like, he won. So who's to say that rush of energy and adrenaline wasn't the thing that put them over the finish line? Like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
So maybe it's either that I lack a killer instinct or something. Who knows?
Well, we're going to start wrapping up soon. We do have our next breakdown going to come up very shortly. I do want to ask one more question now. Now that you did lose the match,
you guys man, brutal.
Wow.
I'm a guest on your show. How dare you?
Your ass. No, I'm kidding. Oh, we love you guys anyway. But now
let's go back to what Smets kept calling you last week. Let's start with a nickname.
You guys are full of. You got all the tea. You're like, did you hear what Gilmore said about you? Listen to this. Just stirring it up. Just stirring the pot over here.
You gotta get ratings. T equals ratings. That's never heard a long time ago. But no. So you guys are eligible now for the team's tournament, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, I don't like Winston. It's in Winston's hands who he decides to put in. There are several potentially great teams on Swag. But yes, I think we are now possibly a contender in the teams tournament.
Perfect.
And I know Paul and I would like to stay together. We enjoy being a team. We would like to see where this can go, and we're not letting this one loss, sort of defeat us. And we I think, Paul, this is really going to light an even more impassioned fire under Mr. Oyama. I would bet he's going to plan to come back even stronger than ever.
We do have one Streamlabs as we are wrapping this up. If anybody has any quick questions, you can throw them in there. But we do have a Streamlab from Patrick Harden. Great to see you back in the chat. He made his first call to action appearance in the chat yesterday. So welcome back, Patrick. He says, Lon, your delinquent character work has made me laugh more deeply and for longer than any I can recall in the MTS world and most Hollywood productions.
Oh, my goodness.
There have been a lot of days here in 2020 where I needed just that. Thank you, sir.
Oh, that's really lovely. That's very nice to hear. And yeah, so sometimes people send you notes like that where they're like, I had a really tough week and this made it, fun. And I got to forget myself for a night. And it's like, it's just really hits, especially now when we're all kind of like, goblins in our apartments, like going crazy. It's very meaningful to hear something like that it's really had any kind of impact on somebody. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Also, we'll say you have your match airing on Monday now. Your match against Sabina, I believe.
Sabina, yes, which I won't.
No, you can't say anything about it. Right?
Can't say a word, but yes. Good match. Very knowledgeable player. Very exciting to get the tournament, underway. Another singles tournament. I kind of sucked it up last year in the singles tournament, and I'm excited to get back out there.
Excellent. Could be a good run. Nice. Okay. Well, I guess that is going to wrap it up. I don't got any more questions.
12 titles this year.
So why don't we launch
Intercontinental? Yeah. I'm sorry. I was talking over you. What'd you say?
That's okay. No, why don't you just tell us where we can find you?
Oh, Twitter @LONS. That's where to find me. Yeah, that's where I post almost everything. So go there.
And his Twitter feed is awesome. Just let you know.
I need you to make like a hardcore WWE hardcore title from like the 90s with it's all broken and trash.
Yeah.
An Intercontinental title on it.
Honestly, Christian will kick me out of this league. Like I can see, I know when he's playing, because he's a funny guy. Like I know when he's playing the straight man, like when he's goofing with me and he's like cut his mind. Like I get when we're doing a bit. We are not doing a bit when he's like cutting me off when I'm announcing my fake titles. Like he really does not like it, which makes it funnier for me. But I really feel like if I push it too much further, there will actually be consequences.
There are things that he definitely does not like, and he definitely makes that pretty well known when he does not like them.
I mean, so far I have avoided like a talking to about it, but I feel like we're skating on that line right now. If I keep it up.
Keep pushing the line.
Okay, Billy. Where can the folks find you, Billy?
You can find me at Mr. Billy Belford on Twitter. That's where I'm at. I tweet stuff and retweet stuff on there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Danielle.
What's up, y'all? You know me. It's your girl Danny Joy here. You can find me on Twitter at Danny Joy, TANIEEJOY. You can also find me here on the Call to Action Network every Monday hosting Chill to Action with my favorite co-host, Mr. Paul Denuzio, hanging out, talking to Schmodown celebrities. We got Andres Gallego. I gotta pronounce his last name.
Actually, I should throw it right here. I got an ad from Kelsey.
Ooh.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of those cute little clips, Kelsey. I loved it. I thought that was great. That was my first time seeing that one, so I really enjoyed it very much. You can find me there every Monday. You can also find me here on the Call to Action Network as usual. And that's pretty much it. So go and follow me on Twitter and come and hang out. Make sure that you like this video, comment on it after we live stream, comment on any of the videos that you watch. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. C2A2K coming soon. Hey!
Wow. You're so good at that. It's fast.
Letters, numbers.
What a read.
I can't even do that. You can find me at Paul on Twitter. You can find me also on Chilled Action with my favorite co-host, Danny. And I do love Billy, too. So I like co-hosting with Billy, too. So I'll say that.
You're all terrific. You're all wonderful.
You also find me on Action Industries YouTube channel. I'm doing class action every week on there. And on PLD Projects, my own YouTube channel that I've opened and started doing work on there. Otherwise, stay tuned. Again, probably about 10-15 minutes, we'll be doing the breakdown of the Kevin Smets Chandru match from last week. I believe it's going to be Alex Mack going to be on. I believe Kelsey's going to be on. I believe, Billy, you're sticking around for that one, correct?
I'm going to be on.
That's all you need to know.
A lot to say about that match. All right, a lot to say.
Not a lot about this one. Very uninteresting. Let's just get through this. We're almost done. I understand.
Thank you so much, Lon.
My pleasure. Wonderful to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you on. I'll have to have you on again in the future and do this again sometime, and we'll go from there. So, everyone else, thank you for stopping by, hanging out, and we love you guys so much. One last check for Streamlabs. Nope, that's it. Take care. Have a great night, and we will see you soon. That's coming next, guys. Coming next.
Boop, 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 boop.